Good evening and welcome. The board concluded our executive session at 6:06 p.m., and I would like to call the meeting to order for the regular CSD board meeting for March 8th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Thank you for joining us this evening. At this time, I ask that everyone join us in a moment of silent reflection. At this time, I'd like to ask all who are able to stand, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so I'd like to make a couple revisions to the agenda. I'd like to amend the agenda. So I would like to make a motion to add superintendent search to our discussion items. And I'd like to add the approval of the certificate of distribution for educational local options sale. The action item. May I have a motion to approve the agenda for this evening?
Motion to approve the agenda items added.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Thank you. And I'd like to make note that we have one board member who was not present. Carmen Sultan is not here tonight. So the agenda for this evening is approved. Our next agenda item is the approval of the minutes from the regular board meeting on February 8th, 2022, and the work session minutes from February 15th, 2022, and February 22nd, 2022. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the previous two board meetings?
I move to approve the minutes from the previous two board meetings.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes from the February 8th, 2022 meeting and the work session minutes from February 15th and February 22nd, 2022, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes for the February 8th, 2022 board meeting and work session minutes from February 15th, 2022 and February 22nd, 2022 are approved. At this time, we will move on in our agenda to the spotlight section, and we will hear from the staff at Renfro Middle School. I will ask Dr. Furman to please introduce our spotlight presenter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This evening, we are spotlight from Renfro Middle School, and we have Mr. Wiseman in person, and I believe he has some people online that are going to help run the show. And they are going to highlight the YLOE and Gents clubs at Renfro Middle School, and they do amazing work led by Assistant Principal Alexis Glenn and Dr. Charlie McAdoo. These are clubs for young ladies and gentlemen of color that provide a safe space to build relationship skills and healthy self-esteem. Thank you, Mr. Wiseman, for being here.
Okay, it's great to be here in person, and you kind of stole all my thunder there. Before I pop over to Renfro to go see the orchestra play, I want to introduce our spotlight, and it is on our two amazing clubs, YLOE and Gents, that are sponsored by Alexis Glenn, Assistant Principal of 8th grade, and Dr. Charlie McAdoo, one of our CTAE teachers. So they recorded a video for you to watch about these programs, and then they're available online for questions.
I would like to share with you a brief historical perspective of the mentorship groups here at Renfro Middle School. The mentorship group started in 2010. YLOE, the Young Ladies of Excellence, started with Nikki Park and Inez Cox. YLOD, the Young Men of Distinction, started with Dominicus Robinson. YLOE has ran continuously since 2010 with the help of various sponsors within the building, including one of our own very own board members, Ms. Jamie Johnson Davis. The Gents replaced YMOD in 2017 with the help of Alex Chisholm, Barry Post, Johnny Stroy, and myself. Although these programs have been running continuously strategic partnerships, directed growth to expand the scope throughout the district, and also provide more opportunities for students to feel a part of the general school body.
YLOE is designed to provide a safe space where young ladies of color can build leadership and promote healthy self-esteem. We build leadership skills and character traits such as honesty, personal accountability, learning to listen to the viewpoints of others, clear communication, goal setting, critical thinking, and sound decision-making. These skills are essential to success in school, work, and life. For many of our young ladies, this is the only connection they have to school and the community.
Young Ladies of Excellence promise.
We are young ladies of excellence, and we are operating our best. Young ladies of excellence, that we do, believe in myself, understand that through my voice and talent, I can make a difference. Understand others, the community, and myself. Go confidently in the direction of my dreams. Acquire talent through new ideas and self-inspiration. Unlock my unique potential. We are powerful girls who achieve our goals and dreams. We won't leave here like we came.
The mission of the Gents is to increase cultural awareness, foster healthy social connections, and extend educational experiences for young men. Participating students will engage in activities that strengthen their leadership abilities, connections with others, and general social emotional well-being. The Gents experience offers students opportunities to feel a sense of belonging. For many of the Gents members, the Gents is the only sustained, authentic that is culturally responsive to their needs.
Mhm.
With the support of DEF and CFC's Equity and Student Service Department, the Young Ladies of Excellence were introduced to a curriculum that covered the following themes. Who am I? School engagement, relationships and conflict resolution, courageous conversations, building leadership, financial literacy, community service, mindfulness, and Black Girl Magic.
For the Gents, our programming includes but is not limited to the following: leadership development, positive behavior, agency and advocacy, career exploration, mindfulness, community service, and soft skills.
Although YLOE and Gents started their journeys at RMS with the support of Dr. Banks and our Equity and Student Service Department, YLOE and Gents will expand their mentoring experiences to both Elsa Elementary Schools and DHS with continued partnerships with our lower elementary schools.
Looking back, we would like to share with you some of the exciting events that Gents and YLOE have participated in this year. A military experience over at DHS High School, participated in the DEF Meade Road Mardi Gras Parade, How to Be a Doctor event in collaboration with Emory Medical students, community service / lock-in. YLOE members participated in the Mlk Mural event, Fed the Homeless with Frontline Response, a food drive, and also operating the school's PBIS store. And lastly, 3 of the 6 REACH scholars were either Gents or YLOE members.
Mentor learning experiences are still ongoing for YLOE and Gents this school year. Current and upcoming events include our school bathroom beautification project, Read to Me partnership with Glenwood, a career symposium you don't want to miss, a mentoring experience with Westchester Elementary, vocational educational experience with local businesses such as Pure, an HBCU local college tour, and a Black Girl Magic Night celebration.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wiseman and Dr. McAdoo and Ms. Glenn. Are there any questions? Are they on? I'm guessing they're on. Okay. Any questions or comments to share with the Renfro team?
What can we do to support?
So,
Go ahead, Ms. Glenn.
oh, okay. So, if we can continue to just have, some, a budget allocation from the equity department, because a lot of the stuff that we do in the past, there hasn't been a budget. But again, with DEF support this year and equity, we were able to expand the program to do more, from buying the girls' journals and buying the gentlemen journals, making sure they have snacks, and like bringing the career symposium that we're going to do. So if we can just continue to have a line budget to support the program moving forward, that would really, really help grow the program. Because right now we kind of have to cap it at 25 per school, just because of budget reasons. But there are a lot of students that would love to continue to join it, hence why we're able to now expand it to the upper elementaries and the high school.
And I definitely, I agree with Ms. Glenn. This has been in its latest iteration going on for the gents since 2017, and this is little to no budget, and it's pretty much funded through the sponsors. So we pay for the majority of everything that we do, and all programming comes from us. So and it's done after school. So we typically have at least about 30 meetings per year. So that's weekly, excluding maybe a couple weeks at the beginning of the year and at the end and during testing. So, this is, I totally agree with Ms. Glenn. And we're doing this out of our own pockets.
And if we can also, I just want to reiterate too, curriculum was something new this year. For YLOE, I am the one that I've actually written the curriculum for our YLOE that'll be used not only at the middle school, but at the high school and the elementary. So if we can also get some support with, a summer planning with the individuals that will start leading it at the middle school, the upper elementaries and the high school, that would be great.
And real quickly, I definitely want to make note, DEF has supported, we do get support from, Mr. Wiseman, our administration, but I mean, there's no line item. So every year it's undetermined, and the students keep increasing. So we continue to have more and more students that want to be part of something that's positive, and it gives them an opportunity. And it's one of the few things, and the only thing for a lot of students that's culturally responsive to their needs. So we do get support. So I definitely want to make note that DEF has reached out, and they have supported us significantly the second half of this year.
As well as Dr. Banks helping us.
As well as Dr. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Ms. Glenn and Dr. McAdoo, I just want to thank you all for continuing this work. It's near and dear to me. Ms. Glenn, I love the new logo. I miss YLOE so much. And so I just appreciate you all and all of this work that you all do above and beyond your daily responsibilities in the classroom and in the building.
Thank you.
I wanted to just second that. Thank you so much for the presentation. My daughter had a personal experience with Ms. Johnson Davis while she was at Renfro, and was definitely the highlight of her middle school experience. And so I can just imagine that the kids that are with you all right now will be able to say the same thing. So thank you so much for the presentation. It was nice to just hear about it. It's been a few years since she's been in that program. So, and I'm excited about my youngest getting to be a part of it now. So thank you again.
Yeah, I particularly found the young women repeating the lines and the repeat on the International Day of Women, and young women of color having a space to support each other and find a place to be is so important at that age. And look forward to hearing how you all find the support in the community and what we can do, what I can do personally as having a young lady showing up at Renfro next year. I'm excited what you all are doing. So keep it up, and thank you. The world needs great educators, and you all are definitely two of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, so at this time, we will move on to public comment. Dr. Furman, do we have any members of the public signed up?
We do not.
Okay, well, we will keep moving on in our agenda. At this time, I will turn the agenda over to Dr. Furman to share superintendent's comments.
All right, thank you. All right, good evening. All those listening in, all those present, and board members. Just not a whole lot on my comments this evening. Whoops, skip one. Just a summary of some of the things that we've been up to this month. Attended the new board meeting and new board member training with Dr. Sultan, and that was very informative. I find that every time I go to a GSBA trainings, I'm always really impressed with the team that Ms. Wilson has put together and the learning that she engages everyone in. So another great session. Continue to meet with my monthly stakeholder groups, teacher advisory, classified staff advisory, student advisory teams, and the monthly principal check-ins. The student advisory team has been very enlightening as we go through this. They are pillars of advancing racial equity, building and sustaining positive culture and climate, as well as accelerating student learning, and talking about and giving me information on what the students want to see as things in their school to help them meet those needs, as well as the things that they feel that they have the right to have as students in our school system, and then also sharing what should we have in place as a school system to make sure that those rights are upheld. So it's been very informative, and I'm looking forward to continuing that process with that team. Working with my staff, Dr. Beam led the last Leadership Academy class, and it was focused on the teaching and learning. It was a very engaging and informative class, so thank you, Dr. Beam. And then we have been hard at work as a team preparing the budget that we'll be presenting this evening, and then also in accordance with the principals working on our staffing allotments, which has also been a big lift for us this year as we implement a new staffing allotment formula, and just walking the principals through that individually as they need some assistance. Had a great opportunity to go to the Meade Road Mardi Gras Parade and was a judge, and that was a lot of fun. And our Westchester crew won first place for the school parade, so that was great. And then also had a really great opportunity to participate in the police chief interview last Wednesday. As we know, they're getting close to making a final decision, and I served on the community stakeholder panel, and that was a very interesting and very eye-opening experience to hear questions being asked to a police chief and what they're looking for in the next police chief, so that was wonderful. Lots of congratulations. Our staff and students continue to excel. I wanted to shout out our culinary team at the high school. They placed second in regions, and they will move on to the state competition this month. Our Tally Street students, they submitted select stories to an author, Kelly Yang, and they were selected by the author to be kind of featured on her webpage. We want to congratulate our Tally students. Also, we found out that 6 of our Decatur alum have been inducted into the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame. So we thought that was a really nice shout out to our athletic teams. Also, our boys and girls basketball teams both advanced to the state playoffs. And then our literacy team traveled to Johns Creek for their regional competition. They could only send 5 members to complete an essay writing for extemporaneous speaking. And at the end of the evening, they earned high scores in each event and brought home the regional championship. So we want to congratulate those students. That is Gray Hamby, Lydia Witter, Molly Kyatt, Dina Rogers, and Bridget Goodman. We also had several students that were won Young Georgia Author District of Winners for 2022. We have Kenji Batt from Glenwood Elementary, Beckett Renault from Oakhurst Elementary, Harriet Chrisley from Westchester Elementary, Claire Camp from Tally Elementary, Sarah Barbie DeWolf from Fifth Avenue, Molly Davis from Renfro, Romula Raman Baxi from Decatur High School, Emerson Keene from Decatur High School, Nikita Takara from Decatur High School, and Lydia Ruth Witter, also from Decatur High School. So we want to congratulate those students on being district winners. I forgot, my first one on my list was to introduce our new principal, Ms. Christine Knox. She started her first day at Westchester on March 1st, and she has hit the ground running. And we are so excited that she has joined our team of principals. She comes to us with over 10 years of experience as a principal, and we are just so excited to have her wisdom and knowledge being part of our team and adding to the wonderful district that we have here in Decatur. So welcome, Ms. Knox. And another shout out to the Westchester crew. I was there before she even started. She was out there participating in the Mardi Gras crew parade, which I thought was really nice. And finally, we want to congratulate Black and Ms. Hamilton. These high school teachers were selected for the Black Teacher Project Fellowship. The Black Teacher Project Fellowship is an 18-month Black teacher affinity cohort experience for teams of 2 classroom teachers who are committed to exploring Black identity development, wellness, Black leadership for liberation, and quality instruction rooted in Blackness. We're excited that they were nominated and will be taking place in this fellowship. So I wanted to give congratulations to Ms. Black and Ms. Hamilton. And as I promised, I did want to give an update to the community on our COVID mitigation. We know that there was changes from the CDC, and one thing that I have learned as we've navigated COVID is the CDC will make changes as quickly as possible and put those out there for us to implement. And we have selected the CDC guidance as our standard to follow, and we will continue to do that going forward. So that did affect how we were implementing mitigation strategies. I do understand that the change from masks required to masks strongly recommended was something that some of our community members and parents and even staff members were a little not quite ready for. But we also have to respect that we have many, many community members feeling on the other side that it was way over time. So the decision was made to go ahead and follow the CDC guidance as stated on their website to move to mask strongly recommended. And the question that kept coming to me was, if not now, when? So if we don't go ahead and make the changes when they're recommended by the CDC, when do we make those changes as a school system? So that's part of what drove my decision making. So we have updated our rubric. We do anticipate that there are going to be some additional updates coming from the CDC, specifically on how to implement test to stay, on how to do quarantine and isolation. So some of those guidelines we do anticipate will be coming in the upcoming days. So what you can see on our new guidance, bigger for the board, is I have gone ahead and adjusted hours to the 3 levels that the CDC has recommended. I have aligned our strategies with what they have put forward as the recommended guidance. As updates are made, we will fine-tune any of our mitigations to align with what the CDC has at this time. But for the most part, we are continuing. We are in the low stage at this point. I've put a link in this document for the community to also help monitor. And then, so we've outlined these, and it is masks optional in the low setting, masks highly recommended or strongly recommended in the medium, and masks required in the high setting. But we did have lots of mitigation strategies that I felt we still needed to keep on the table if things really start getting in a place where we're not as comfortable as a school system. So I've targeted these additional mitigation strategies for things that we can put in as needed. And that might be pausing visitors to our school. It might be limiting the seats at a game. We know we want to prioritize in-person learning. I feel like we can do that with the mitigation strategies that we have outlined here, which still include even at the low level contact tracing, test to stay. So we feel like those are still appropriate at this low level. So this is our updated matrix. I will provide more information as well and summarize this in the Friday follow-up week. And that concludes my comments for this evening. Any questions from the board?
I think just a comment, Emily, thank you for your leadership on this topic. I know it's relatively difficult, and you mentioned a couple of times CDC communication. Having read the CDC communications, sometimes I feel like it takes extra effort to interpret CDC communication. So I thank you for being consistent in your communication on this. I think it's brought a lot of needed stability around this particular topic.
Can you talk briefly about the process of how this change happened for you and the role of the advisory team going forward? And I know that that's kind of top level, but I mentioned it in our meeting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry do that again. I just
That's
think that
okay.
it would be kind of publicly, if anyone's listening, although no public comments, so my question was sort of expecting that there would be a bunch.
Yeah.
Like, how does it go, the role of the board, the role of the advisory team, and the role of your cabinet, and then how you would get it. Because what I think a lot of people are concerned about, someone emailed us, very early on, and was like, why not take a month and then decide? And my personal reaction was, a month from now, we may have another variant, and we may be back to math.
Right.
Which was, and then you shared, yeah, that was my exact thing as well.
Yeah.
So you can just talk through that and sort of like,
Yeah.
hey, this is recorded.
Yeah.
I could point people to that.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah, so I'm happy to share a little bit more there. So as we think about COVID mitigation, we've had a couple iterations of different advisory teams and people helping us review this. The current advisory teams we have is kind of a medical expert group, and then we also have a parent group who also have a lot of expertise, lo and behold, in some medical fields and epidemiology. So it's an interesting mix of individuals, really highly qualified individuals as well. So we were anticipating there would be some changes in the mitigations, and so I met with both groups together a few weeks ago, and they knew also the changes were going to come, but they felt like it was going to be at least a week or so. So I was a little taken aback when CDC dumped that guidance updated on Friday afternoon, and they were as well. And then immediately I send them an email. I asked them, hey, look at this, kind of what's your take on this? You know, what are you feeling? They were very much split, pretty much 50-50 as well. So they're like, some of them very much, no, not time. Some of them, yep, the CDC has said it. So if not now, when? Is that kind of reiterating that question? And the not now, when, just like you mentioned, James, is that if we don't do it now, a month from now, numbers could be crazy. So we could have lost some time where students could have had, parents, teachers could have had a little relaxed mitigation. And I think they have been very compliant with masking, have done a really great job with that. And if the CDC is coming out with guidance that say it's time to, take masks off, I'm going to follow that guidance. I'm not an expert. I'm going to follow what they have asked us to do. So I do always reflect with the mitigation advisory teams and get their input before I do make a decision. Sometimes decisions have to be made quickly, and I feel like making this one quickly was the appropriate thing to do because we were able to move forward. I think we have seen that the implementation of the mask optional or mask strongly recommended has been well received. We do see most of our students still wearing masks, and that's their personal choice, and that is totally fine.
Yeah. And then you kind of brought it to us.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. And then I share my thinking with the board and share those, share the letter that I'm going to send out to the community with the board for their input and feedback. And then it is a decision. These are the kind of decisions that are implementation that the superintendent is deemed to be the person to make that decision. It's not a board decision on how these mitigation strategies are rolled out. But I do get board feedback.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Hans. It's a lot. We've got a lot of superintendents of a society in the middle of a pandemic, and I appreciate the careful steps of that, and it's a lot. So, thank you.
Dr. Furman, you mentioned that there are some mitigation practices that we may have to implement as a district. But in terms of the other mitigation practices that will remain right now, has that already been updated?
Rubric. So the mitigation strategies that will remain in place are still the same mitigation strategies that we've been using pretty much all along.
Okay.
The big things that have changed are moving from masks required to masks optional.
Okay.
Opened our schools to allow visitors and volunteers to enter our schools. Our parents have been asking for that for a while.
Right.
So I am happy to report that parents can start returning to the classrooms. They must take we want to make sure that like anyone, if you're not feeling well, don't come to the building. So we want to make sure that they do understand that, but we will keep up with contact tracing. We will continue to keep up with test at state protocol and the point of care test at our schools.
Okay. Thank you. And you said this will go out.
Right. Yeah, I'll share it Friday in the follow-up.
Okay. Thank you. Good.
That's it. Thank you.
All right, so I will move on to the chair's report. On February 24th, the board held an informative and robust retreat We invited representatives from the Georgia School Board Association to join us to discuss their process for helping school boards to develop a new strategic plan and to explain how they assist boards in revising their board policy manual and board norms. The GSBA representatives explained how the board's policy manual, board norms, as well as the superintendent's evaluation should all line up with the strategic plan. The school board and Dr. Furman are in agreement that we need to engage GSBA in helping us to develop a new strategic plan and in revising our current board policies and board norms. The process for creating a new strategic plan can average about 6 months, but for some school districts, it can take up to a year. Stakeholder engagement is critical to this process, and so the CSD community will have an opportunity to participate. Changes to CSD's policy manual and our board norms will happen concurrently with the development of the new strategic plan. We are currently working to receive confirmation from GSBA on dates and a timeline for executing this work. The next day, on February 25th, I was proud to attend and support the organizing effort of Decatur High School seniors at the Hands Off Georgia rally, where they expressed their opposition to the anti-critical race theory bills that are making their way through the state legislature. To watch the students advocate for what they believe was to witness the IB learner profiles in action. Thank you to those students for making their voices heard and to the parents who supported their activism. Community members have asked how they can receive information on legislation that is impacting education in Georgia, like the anti-critical race theory bills. The Georgia School Board Association has a wonderful online resource, Capitol Watch Online, which tracks and explains current legislation. I will include a link to GSBA's website in the bulletin board newsletter that will go out at the end of this week. After the Hands Off Georgia rally, I ran home and jumped on my computer to participate in Tally Street's first African-American read-in. As a former teacher, I can't tell you how much I have missed Read Aloud. It was such a pleasure and so much fun to share a book with Tally's 5th grade classes. Thank you to Tally Street Media Specialist, Ms. Ashley Long, for the invitation, and I look forward to participating again next year. Today, I attended an instructive 6-hour online workshop for new school board members in Georgia. The workshop was facilitated by GSBA and covered several important topics, including legal issues and governance leadership, effective meetings and the role of board chair, leading during high-stress times, and legislative updates and leaders of leaders. I learned a lot today, and the workshop has me even more excited about this role. March 6th through the 12th is National School Social Work Week, and the board wishes to express our heartfelt thanks and appreciation for our school social workers. These individuals serve as vital members of the education team, playing a central role in creating a positive environment in our schools. Our school social workers are especially skilled in identifying and providing services to students who face serious challenges to school success, including homelessness, disability, discrimination, abuse, addiction, bullying, loss of a loved one, and other barriers to learning. The theme for National School Social Work Week is Time to Shine, and our school social workers shine brightly for all members of the CSD community. Thank you to the CSD social workers for all you do. That concludes my chair's report.
May I?
Yes, please.
Did I add the Mlk Memorial at Tally?
Yes.
The painting that was
At Renfro.
at Renfro?
Yes, please, yes.
Yeah, so, in that list of items that Ms. Johnson Davis was mentioning that she was attending back to back and running back and forth to, I did also happen to attend another fantastic session where she was present. So was, Dr. Furman for the unveiling of the Mlk painting at Renfro Middle School, which was fantastic. It was a great experience. And I wanted to make sure, I was waiting for you to add that because you're talking about all the things that you were doing. It was just another, yeah, it was fantastic.
Thank you for adding that.
Of course.
I apologize for that omission because it was a phenomenal evening, and the students from Renfro's BA participated.
Great thanks to Fonta High
Yes.
for setting it up and taking the leadership there.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else? All right, we will continue with our consent agenda items, which include personnel report, school nutrition, and financial reports. May I have a motion to approve the consent items 1 through 3?
Motion to approve consent items 1 through 3?
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
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 The consent agenda items 1 through 3 are approved. We now move on to action items for this evening. Our first action item is to review and approve the tentative 2022-2023 board work plan calendar.
Yes, so board, I have provided in your packet a outline of all the upcoming board meetings with some agenda topics already outlined in there for you. You'll see a similar kind of calendaring out that we've used previous years, where I'm adding the consent items, the spotlights, and we'll continue to add this as we go through and update it. And every month, if there's changes, I'll bring this back to the board for your review so you can see any changes. One of the things that I do want to highlight in this report or this calendar is you'll see 3 our quarterly district improvement updates. So what we will do at those quarterly updates is we'll provide the board an update on the data that we've collected, the progress that we've made on our district improvement plan. Instead of kind of digging through one each individually, we'll provide those high-level overviews at that time. And the other piece I did want to point out to the board, as Ms. Johnson-Davis mentioned, is that we're still working with GSBA to plan out the strategic planning, the board policy review, and the board norms. And as those dates get finalized, we will add those to this calendar. Any questions or comments or things about the calendar?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. All right, may I have a motion to approve the tentative 2022-2023 board work plan calendar?
I move to approve the 2022-2023 board meeting calendar.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, the tentative 2022-2023 board meeting calendar is approved. Our second action item is to approve a contract for the installation of a new intercom system at Decatur High School. Are there any questions or comments on this item before the board votes on the contract?
Yes, I did ask Dr. Furman as to whether or not this was a SPLOST-funded item, and I believe the answer was yes.
Right.
Okay.
Quick question, do we know if with this particular company, when their intercom system is installed, as far as maintenance and or repairs, do we use the same company? Do we have to use the same company? Or is that up to our discretion who we would use for that?
That's a good question. Mr. Perez, do you know?
You can use the same company.
Okay.
Harley built these,
Awesome, thank you, Sergio.
Okay. All right, may I have a motion to approve the contract for the installation of a new intercom system at Decatur High School?
I move to approve the installation.
I have a new intercom system, all right. May I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor,
The
please.
installation.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, the contract for the installation of a new intercom system at Decatur High School is approved. The third action item for the board is to approve the nutrition department purchase for district-wide kitchen equipment. Are there any questions or comments for the board regarding the proposed contract for kitchen equipment?
If I just had an outstanding question around disbursement of the existing equipment, what we do with it, are we able to sell it? There's apparently a process that we have to go through, and what we can do with that capital when that occurs.
Yeah, we're working on getting those answers for you.
Great.
All right, may I have a motion to approve the contract for the purchase RFQB 21-005 district-wide kitchen equipment?
Move to approve the contract for the purchase RFQB 21005 district-wide kitchen equipment.
All right, may I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The contract for the kitchen for the purchase RFQB 21005 district-wide kitchen equipment is approved. Are there any questions or comments from the board regarding the approval of the certificate of distribution for educational local option sales and use. No? All right. May I have a motion to approve the certificate of distribution for educational local option sales and use?
Certificate of dis-
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The certificate of distribution for educational local option sales and use has been approved. So we have our monthly data reports that are provided to us as information only. So we will continue with our discussion items. We will move on, and Dr. Furman will continue this discussion.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to call Ms. Broom up to the podium to begin our presentation on the tentative budget for FY23.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay. Okay, good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board, Dr. Furman, community, and colleagues. We have met extensively discussing the fiscal year 23 budget. This evening will make the 6th public budget hearing meeting we have had. Today, we will pull in all those discussions and review the 4 budgets the board approved, which are the school nutrition, special revenue, SPLOST, and the district's primary operating budget, which is the general fund budget. Definitions of commonly used budget terms are included in the presentation for references as needed. Fiscal year 23 budget planning starts with the school nutrition fiscal year 23 proposed preliminary budget. School nutrition revenue budget consists of 4 different revenue sources. Other local revenue is revenue received from catering and contracted services. Examples include providing meals and snacks to parks and rec centers and providing meals to the early childhood learning centers. Revenues from sales are projected to be right under $2 million. Currently, the district is participating in the United States Department of Agriculture program in which all students eat free. However, there has not been a decision on extending this program to next year, so we have budgeted accordingly. And if the program is extended, the budget will be revised. State and federal revenues are reimbursements received from the government. Total projected revenue for the school nutrition program for fiscal year 23 is right at 2.9 million. Total expenditures for the school nutrition program is in balance with total revenue. The 2 largest expenses for the school nutrition program is staffing at $1.2 million and the purchase of food at $1.26 million. There's also approximately $900,000 in salaries and miscellaneous purchasing budgeted in the general fund for the school nutrition program. Are there any questions on the school nutrition budget? Okay. Next, we have the special revenue budget.
Actually, I do have one question, I'm sorry. What line item would change if the USDA free lunch is extended?
Federal and state revenues, because the revenues from sale would decrease,
Mm-hmm.
and the state and federal revenues because of the reimbursement.
Got it, okay, thank you.
The special revenue budget consists of grant funds received from the federal and state government. Grant funds are restricted in that they can only be used for the purpose outlined in the grant. We must also spend the funds prior to requesting a reimbursement. For fiscal year 23, we are anticipating on receiving the same grants that we traditionally receive, which includes the pre-K grant from the state lottery, title grant, JROTC, and Perkins. We anticipate on receiving and spending a little under $2.7 million. Again, there are restrictions on how these grants can be spent, so there's not much flexibility in the budget. The third budget is the fiscal year 23 capital funds preliminary budget. The capital funds budget consists of revenue received from special purpose local option sales tax, also referred to as SPLOST or eSPLOST for education. East Block is a 1 penny sales tax that funds buildings, technology, and other capital projects needs outside of the general fund. The 1 cent sales tax is paid by everyone who shops or stays in DeKalb County, not just residents in the city of Decatur. The current East Block, Block 5, expires in June of this year. The voters of DeKalb County approved the East Block referendum in November 2021, Block 6, and it will start on July 1st, 2022, and end on June 30th, 2027. East Block 6 is not a new sales tax, but a continuation of the existing penny sales tax. We are anticipating on receiving a little more than $40 million over the 5-year period. By law, East Block can only be used for certain capital projects. East Block cannot be used for the day-to-day operational expenses of the school district. This is the proposed fiscal year 23 capital funds budget. At the bottom of the sheet, highlighted beginning fund balance calculation. The fiscal year 23 beginning fund balance from Block 5 is anticipated to be $2.6 million. We project to receive approximately $8 million, which is listed at the top, a year for 5 years. The $8 million revenue projection and the $2.6 million beginning fund balance gives you the capital fund revenue budget of $10.6 million for fiscal year 23. Expenditures of instructional purchases such as student learning devices, interactive classroom technologies, staff devices, textbooks, and band instruments. Also included in expenditures are process automation and data utilization for student information systems, software, computers, copier, and printers. The largest expense category of East Block is allocated to building construction and improvement at $3.34 million. Projected expenditures for SLOC total $6.3 million. After subtracting the $6.3 million in expenses from the $10.6 million in revenue, the ending fund balance for fiscal year 23 is $4.3 million, which will be the beginning fund balance for fiscal year 2024. Next, we have our fiscal year 23 preliminary general fund budget. As you know, the general fund is our largest budget and our main operating budget with limited restrictions. We have had numerous discussions and presentations on the fiscal year 23 general fund budget. We started budget discussions at the November 30th work session, where the board was presented with the budget timeline and we discussed budget priorities. On December 14th, the board was presented a compensation review to determine the competitiveness of our salary and benefit package compared to other districts. On January the 11th, the board was presented with a budget primer on the current budget and a review of the budget process. On January the 25th, the allotment presentation and enrollment forecasting was presented and discussed. At the February 8th board meeting, we discussed the impact of state proposed budget would have on the fiscal year 22 and 23 budget. Although the state only allocated supplements of $1,000 and $2,000 to select their earned staff, the board tentatively voted for all full-time employees to receive a $2,000 supplement and all part-time employees to receive a $1,000 supplement. Since February's board meeting, the Senate has revised the state's budget and added custodians and nurses to the number of eligible position categories allocated to receive the supplement. Additionally, notice was recently received advising that the Senate has included language which allocates the $2,000 bonus to all teachers and educators in the district and allocates the $1,000 supplement to all bus drivers, school nutrition workers, custodians, and nurses. Last month, we discussed state earned and actual positions. I advised that the state was only providing supplements to earned positions. The revised language from the Senate now allocates the supplements to both earned and actual positions. All positions in the specified categories will be allocated supplements from the state. The numbers presented to you last month were based on the general fund supplementing positions that were not earned per the state formula. The new language added by the Senate that allocates supplements to all staff within the specified categories will reduce the financial amount the district will need to fund. Since we will fund less supplements, this means that the ending fund balance for fiscal year 22 will increase. The current fiscal year 22 budget and next year's fiscal year 23 budget will be adjusted accordingly and presented to you at March work session.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna take a moment for that, right.
I've called a number of senators about the divisive bills, but I'm so sorry. But your presentation and the breakdown of the way that impacts our district, and I spoke to Senator Parent, and I spoke to some other senators, I was like, by the way, this is what this does over the last year. Oh, okay.
Yes, so we'll be So the state's budget proposal is at the Senate in the reconciliation phase, and approval is expected this week. And some of the things that's being considered is like, with the nurses. The governor initially said $1,000 bonus to nurses. The Senate wants to give them $2,000. Public budget overviews have also been presented at various school leadership team meetings, along with ongoing community input and budget reviews with schools and departments. Next, I will present the fiscal year 23 general fund proposed preliminary budget draft. The budget on the right is the projected fiscal year 23 base budget. This was presented to you last month. The proposed state amendments are incorporated in the fiscal year 22 budget and the fiscal year 23 budget. The 2,000 salary increase for fiscal year 23 will be reflected in the teacher's salary scale only. Staff pay on the teacher's salary scale will receive the $2,000 increase and a step increase. All other employees will receive a step increase. Again, with the changes from the Senate to the current amended fiscal year 22 budget, which allocated supplements to all staff in specified categories and added custodians and nurses categories, the ending fund balance will increase, so this is a conservative fiscal year 23 projection. Per board policy, the minimum fund balance is 4%, and as shown in green for fiscal year 2023, the base budget, the projected fund balance is 2.45%. So this requires a thorough analysis of all budgets and positions.
Thank you. At this point, but as we were leaning into reviewing all budgets and making some tough decisions on what to prioritize and what things may needed to be cut, we leaned into our vision and mission, our core values, our strategic priorities, and aligned that with our theory of action to make sure that whatever we're planning in our budget for this upcoming year was aligned with our framework for equitable outcomes for students. If you can go to the next slide, Ms. Maroon. And I just wanted to also review with the board the goal areas that were identified back in November, along with their performance objectives and budget priorities. So the goal areas were equitable outcomes for students, rewarding and recognizing staff to attract and retain a diverse staff of exceptional quality, and operational excellence. And the priorities that we have embedded into this budget, you will see, is we've increased the number of counselors, we've increased equity personnel, we've adjusted some of our personnel up to a new salary range so that they are getting competitive compensation. We have increased the number of staff development opportunities. I believe that this demonstrates our financial stewardship to our taxpayers. And then the one where we are still kind of looking at where we can invest more funds in our safety and security.
As you know, 86% of the district's general fund budget is salaries. And we are projecting a decrease in enrollment of approximately 143 students. Therefore, in order to reduce the budget, staffing. This slide shows the fiscal year 22 personnel budget breakdown between the Wilson Center and school-based personnel. The budget only includes salaries and benefits from the positions assigned to the Wilson Center and positions assigned to schools. The personnel budget for each includes salaries and benefits. The Wilson Center fiscal year 22 personnel budget is approximately $7.2 million, and the school-based personnel budget is approximately $62.3 million. The total personnel budget for Wilson and school-based staff only is approximately $69.5 million. School-based personnel make up 90% of the budget, and Wilson Center makes up 10%. We are proposing savings of approximately $1.4 million in personnel at the school site, which is 2% of the school-based personnel budget, and 553,475 of the Wilson Center budget, which is 8% of the Wilson Center personnel budget. The total savings for personnel changes is a little under $2 million. The proposed personnel savings are from natural attrition at the school site in Wilson Center, modification to select current positions, and the addition of 3 new school counselors. Thanks to Dr. Furman's brainchild, the game changer, we are able to eliminate positions and not people, and will continue to provide the schools with the level of support they need. Total savings for personnel changes is $1.953147. Another area that proposed savings can be realized is tuition. The district has been supplementing the College Heights program. We have a little over $394,000 budgeted in the current fiscal year 22 budget to supplement the program this year. After careful consideration, which included a cost analysis of community programs, review of tuition history, discussion with College Heights and their advisory council, Dr. Furman constructed a tiered 15% tuition increase to be implemented over the next 3 school years, 5% each year. The fiscal impact for fiscal year 23 is projected to be $100,768. For fiscal year 24, $105,279. And for fiscal year 25, $110,543. Increase in tuition will reduce the supplement required from the general fund. Fiscal impact for fiscal year 23 from increasing tuition by 5% is a savings of $107,668. Another area of savings for the district is AP/IB examination costs. At February's work session, the board was presented with the financial impact of AP and IB exams. Most districts do not pay for students to take these exams. Reallocating the examination cost to the parents and allocating $50,000 for AP/IB scholarships will create an for all students. The fiscal impact for fiscal year 23 from reallocating AP/IB test examination to parents is a savings in general fund of $200,000. Other proposed areas of savings include $501,648 from a 5% cut in all operational budgets, with the exception of energy, because we all know that that is increasing. $155,000 from fiscal year 22 one-time budget amendment. The board approved a $75,000 budget amendment for COVID supplies and an $80,000 budget amendment for stormwater drainage in December, so we will remove those back out of the budget. $1.1 million from reallocating textbooks, allowable software, and communication from general fund to supplies. The fiscal impact for fiscal year 23 from miscellaneous reductions is $1.8 million. In reviewing the fiscal year 22 budget, there are areas where additional funding is needed next year to support the district's operation. $70,000 has been allocated to staff support for their recruitment and operational needs. $40,000 has been allocated to athletics for paying coaches supplement pay, student transportation, and professional services. $10,000 allocated to the equity department for assessment, training, and supplies. $25,000 allocated to increase Decatur High School instructional budget. $63,000 allocated to the Decatur Career Academy for transportation, registration, and operational expenses. The fiscal impact for fiscal year 23 from operational increases is an addition of $208,000 to the fiscal year 23 budget. The total of the proposed fiscal year 23 revisions is a reduction of $3.88. We have applied the $3.88 million reduction to the general fund. Drum roll, please. This slide shows the fiscal year 23 base budget on the left with the 2.45% fund balance highlighted in green below. The center shows the proposed revisions totaling $3.8 million in reductions. The budget on the right is the fiscal year 23 proposed preliminary by the $3.88 million. At the bottom of the slide, highlighted in blue, you see the difference between the designated from fund balance base budget and preliminary budget. The fiscal year 23 base budget on the left required that $3.39 million be deducted from the fund balance. The preliminary budget on the right adds $530,491 to the fund balance. Your new projected ending fund balance is now 7.17%.
I'm excited about that one. That 2.45 is scary.
This slide shows the fiscal year 23 through 25 preliminary and tentative projected budgets. As shown, highlighted in light blue, we anticipate on increasing the fund balance each year. The revision for each year includes a step increase for all eligible employees and a 3% operational increase each year. These numbers and percentages will look even better at March work session when we reduce the amount of general funds required for funds for $2,000 full-time and $1,000 part-time. So,
Ms. Broom, I think we have a question.
I do have a question right here, as I'm just noticing that am I getting my lines right? Let me look right here. QBE is fixed each of those years. Do we run a risk with QBE actually being reduced if our enrollment goes down?
Yes.
Okay.
And even though you see it's the same, if you look at the line that says decreased enrollment, you'll see the deduction. That's based on the forecast of our enrollment decrease. In red, not in red, up under the local fair share decreased enrollment.
So the decreased enrollment is accounting for the potential reduction in QBE. Okay.
Correct.
That's okay. That answers my question.
In theory, though, if enrollment goes down, staffing, would replace. It has to happen in chunks where principals can adjust, but.
Thank you. We took the air off so we could save money.
Ms. Broom, I think we have one more question.
Then I got to stand right in time.
I would love to see that, breakout between instructional and non-instructional costs as well.
You want by function.
Yes, largely because it's as good of news as this is. I think you guys are actually underselling the work that you've done, to be totally honest. I think, if I'm looking at these numbers correctly, there's about 1.4 million in savings that you found on the instructional side through the reductions that you're describing, but there's about 2.5 million that you're finding on operating and overhead, and that is a good ratio. And so I just want to make sure y'all get the credit for the work that's been done there. I know how hard it is to go into a budget like this and do it like this. So I want to acknowledge that this is good news. And certainly I appreciate the kind of work that y'all put in. I know we're not done. We've got a couple months of this left, but I think we're in a pretty good place. So thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you, Dr. Furman, as well.
And
Thank you.
staying on the subject of good news, the part you blew through was, this includes a $2,000 salary bump for teachers, everyone. The system, correct?
The supplement for this year.
Supplement for this
Uh-huh.
year.
Yep.
But then what did you say about moving, and then it also includes a step increase.
Step increase in addition to teachers receiving 2,000 plus a step.
2,000 into the salary scale.
Yes. Salary scale will be increased by 2,000 in addition to the step.
That's giant.
Significant, yeah.
So, like Ms. Byrne mentioned, there is some more numbers that we're gonna have to crunch to see where the revisions, for the one-time bonus being passed on to all employees. So what we will do is update the budget numbers. My goal for a fund balance is 10%. We're a little short of there. I think with the new adjustment, we'll get much closer. So one of the things that I'll be asking the board to think about and consider at the March 22nd, and do we want to see some further cuts in budget items? Are we comfortable with a budget, with a fund balance below 10%? Is there an opportunity that the board may consider a slight mill increase? So we'll have some of those more discussions once the additional information is available. The other option that we can look at too, depending on the comfort of the board with the fund balance, is looking at Once the budget's approved, once we go through and we see where our fund balance ends, when we get to, the end of June, is we can pass on a COLA for all the staff who didn't get that $2,000 bonus in the salary schedule, increase from the state.
I would also ask that on that list of things to be considered, similar to how we advanced the, IB testing, if we also consider advancing some of those tuition increases to maybe forward that a little bit closer as well. That's another, it's really $300,000 is the total 15%, and I do recognize why that might be a big chunk to go at once, but if it's more than 5%, that would be something to consider as well.
Okay, noted. Any other questions or thing the board would like to see us make adjustments on for the March 22nd presentation?
I don't. I just wanted to just give another shout out to you, Dr. Furman, and Ms. Broom for how diligently you're working on this, how you're taking changes and shifting, how you're taking what our board priorities have been, what we said we wanted, and really broken everything down. I especially appreciate the game changer that you presented to us at one of the work sessions, and that you were able to give us what we needed to see without having to lose any staff. And that's just huge.
Yeah.
So I really just want to show my appreciation for what a great job you all are doing there. I know it's not easy, so thank you.
Thank you. You've got a great team.
Absolutely, you do.
I guess the being aware of what the cuts are, a little more, so like 5% operational cut, like,
So what we did is we take every operational budget and we say, you're cut by 5%.
Yeah.
And then they have to reallocate their funds.
okay,
Except for power, we did not decrease
sure.
funding for power because we see that energy costs are going to be increasing.
They're not, we don't get this.
But that's my first reaction, where I think we're responsible for it. It's like places where there are cuts, what exactly does that entail? That one I think is reasonable.
Right, thank you, Lenita and Dr. Furman. We're excited about this preliminary budget, so we
We are
appreciate you and your work. We will, now move on to our next discussion item, which is, the firm for the superintendent search. And so we have, had presentations from BWP and Associates, McPherson and Jacobson, and GSBA. And so I want to open up for discussion right now, to get your thoughts on those firms and their presentations, and then we will take a vote on the firm that we'd like to move forward with.
I have one question. Did we get clarity on GSBA regarding the 2-year guarantee or whatever?
They do not.
They do not, but the other ones do.
Right, so his question is, I think both firms will refund your money or conduct another search. When I say both firms, the BWP and McPherson and Jacobson will either, if the superintendent leaves before, if they will either reimburse you or conduct another search, but GSBA does not provide that guarantee.
And I think for discussion purposes, I think all three of them gave great presentations. I think there are similarities amongst all three of them. The one that stood out for me for BWP and, what was the second one?
McPherson and Jacobson.
McPherson and Jacob is the level of community input and how they essentially take over that. That just kind of stood out to me.
Okay.
So between those two, it didn't really matter to me in that regard, because I think that's the same kind of connections. They offer the guarantee, all of those things are the same. But I would go with one of those two, because of the community involvement, and I think that's very important to our community as well as it is to me. So that's where I'm leaning.
In between BWP and, I'm just gonna call it M&J, I thought the timing of the community engagement and the sequencing of it made a lot more sense on the BWP side. Rather than going to the community after the process, to be able to bring the community in at the beginning of the process and make sure that really shapes the discussion prior to whittling down just made a tremendous amount of sense. I also felt like just as a team presenting, they moved between each other a lot more fluidly and brought rather than one person kind of speaking the entire time, it felt like there was a real team engagement. And I was on phone, unfortunately, so I was having to gauge this as voices talking distantly, but that was an impression that I got from the BWP. So I do have, my preference would be BWP over M&J. But I did also like what we heard from GSBA, and I want to acknowledge that the amount of work that we're going to be doing with GSBA over the next couple of months, I do believe that there is some value gained by having all of that happening in one spot and in one house. You know, the same people that are working with us on the strategy and the norms and the policy also helping us do the search. I think there's some value there. So. I do want to very much hear everyone else's perspective on the board, but I'm leaning somewhere between GSBA and BWP.
Okay.
I left hearing from the three of them, finding them very similar and could be swayed. The thing that stuck out about GSBA has stuck out is that, I will say it, that the current person in charge of GSBA, Valerie Wilson, has always taken extra care with Decatur and gone out of her way to make sure that we receive attention and get our questions answered and asked. And I felt that that has always taken place, and I appreciate that personal touch that we got. I don't think that those sorts of relationships should ever be overlooked when you go into something like that. I was blown away by the quality of the presentation we got on how to work together as a board and the norms and the things that go into it. The following presentation, what GSBA did when they brought in the man that I had not met, and I thought that was excellent. Probably the best meeting that I've met. I will agree, Tasha, that I thought that BWP was ready to go with like the public and here's the steps that they went to, but the reason I would go with GSBA is I think that if we sat them down and said, this is what they want, they would give it to us. They know Decatur. They know that we're kind of a unique thing in both the city of Atlanta, and would be willing to build something for us and with us. But I would be happy with them. I agree with BWP. I like the teamwork of the two of them, their willingness to drive over from, Alabama, where they're located, and speak to us directly on that team. That spoke miles to me. They're all gonna advertise in the same places. They're all gonna kind of put forth the same sort of effort to get the names out there. They're gonna play a large role in defining what our community wants and what we want from them.
So I agree. I thought, all three presentations were good and so similar. And to me, there's a significant price difference. And I'm, not looking to pinch pennies in this process, but I didn't see anything significantly different enough to pay an additional $14,000 for BWP or McPherson and Jacobson. One is $21,500 and the other one is $21,000. GSBA is $7,500. What really kind of sways me more towards GSBA is just how intimately they are involved with us. They're getting ready to go through this process with us to do our strategic plan and to revise our policy manual and board norms. And as you mentioned, Valerie Wilson is the executive director, and, Dr. King, Samuel King, is typically at whatever training we have participated in as new board members, as new board chair. And so I just feel like with that level of involvement from GSBA, they will know what we need. And I feel like for me, there's a level of trust there. Not that those other firms, are less than at all. It's just because we we have so much of a relationship with GSBA, I just feel so confident that they will help us make the best decision, and find the, decide on, the best candidate for this, position. So, the biggest difference was how they engage community. GSBA does a survey to, get feedback from the community of what they want from a superintendent, and we would be the only folks interviewing, the candidates, which I'm fine with because, the community has, elected us to hire a superintendent. So, that's the biggest difference is that there is more, I guess, community, involvement in terms of BWP and McPherson outside of a survey. And they may even pull, I can't remember if they pull, committees together to interview with the candidates. And
He talked about that a little bit more than the other one, but
yeah.
yeah.
But I feel like, essentially we would be able to get the same information. So I'm leaning towards GSBA. Any other conversation?
I lean towards GSBA as well. I do want to push them a little bit on the community engagement beyond just the survey. I think if we can seek additional support for group meetings, or I don't want to go as far as different interviews because I recognize the value of what you're describing, but a little bit more of a diligence on community engagement, even if we're needing to hire or bring in some additional help for that, because I realize part of the difference between the 7,500 and the 21,000 is all of that additional work. I just think that we can't go wrong getting more community engagement, and I'd like to talk about options for that, even if we do go with GSBA.
Okay. Now, I did ask about that after we talked about it, and they don't hold those focus groups. So I just want to put that out there in terms of the services they provide. So.
Is that something we would be willing, the accountants, to find additional support on? I would like to propose that we be willing.
Well, I guess
additional.
I guess the thing is, if we're gonna do that, why wouldn't we go with one of the other firms? I guess is the question.
Well, because I do think that there is, I don't want to undersell the value of having the one firm that we're involved in all of the other work. And there is value in that trusted, well-established, known relationship. I don't mean to dismiss that at all. I think there's a huge value to that. I just think that, so I think that there's the value for the trusted relationship and the engagement on everything else that we're working on, in my mind, overrides probably the higher level. It's not like we're not getting any community engagement. We're not going to get a surgeon. To override it, I'm just trying to get my cake and eat it is what I'm asking.
What are your thoughts about that?
I guess my response to you would be, we hired GSBA because of all the things you said. And in our first meeting, you said, hey, I'm very interested in school and community feedback. How would you all handle this? What is your recommendations? And they gave you feedback and said, and led us down the road and what their suggestions were. Happy to talk that back and forth and go with whatever they suggested. And if we as a board were like, what we really want are like focus groups, I doubt very seriously that Sam or whoever else is leading it would like veto our wishes, but would more than likely help us put together whatever that is, or talk you out of it, right? Like, and pro and con your way out of that sort of like approach to it and what they've seen. I mean, they've done, you saw like 200 in the larger metro area, not metro area, small, large, city school, not city, that sort of.
So your suggestion would be to go back to GSBA to see what their recommendations are for?
No, mine is like, if that's the group you want because you have that connection and they have experience doing it, instead of just being like, God, what I really want is, I want to choose them because they're good at this, like community feedback, and that's what I want. To me, that's something you should work out with the group that you want to pick, right? To me, that would be like, gosh, I really want BWP because the most important thing to me is negotiating salary sort of stuff, and BWP said they didn't provide that, but otherwise I'm great. It was like, well, let's hire them and then let's work that out as part of the process, because otherwise they are phenomenal. And that just sort of seems like one aspect of the process we can discuss as we're going.
I'm comfortable with that approach, if that's what we choose to do, because I do think that they're flexible, and I do think that I'm open to being convinced otherwise as well, I think, so that I would be comfortable with that.
We have also bought ourselves some time. We do have another board member, especially at our next work session. But I think we're totally fine with that. All of the presenters said that time.
Okay, so are we saying we want to table this discussion for now? And tell me what you all want to do right now.
Yeah, my question kind of to follow up is like, what is it that, either, James or Hans, you would want to see further before being able to make a decision today, or do you feel like you can make a decision today?
I'm saying I would be comfortable making the decision today the way that James laid it out. If we pick GSBA and then in the course of the conversation say, look, we recognize you may not do additional work for community engagement, but we are engagement, what can you point us to? They have the opportunity to say, here are all the reasons why you shouldn't, maybe talk us out of it, or if they have other resources, they can say, here are some things to consider. I'm okay with that approach. So I would be comfortable moving forward with the decision today.
That's what you thought.
I mean, I've been working with GSBA with various things for 6 years now, and always had a great experience with them, so I don't think I have a huge trust for them as well. I still sticking with one of the other companies only because of how our community is and how unique they are and how they like to be involved. And putting those things together takes a lot of time and work and effort, a lot of time. And so I think having somebody specific to be able to do that, what I would hate to see is, almost like you said, we choose them, they refer us to somebody else who can maybe help with more of the focus group and community engagement. It ends up costing more, and we're using two different companies versus being able to kind of stick with one and keep it, with one company that we can solidify a relationship with. And for me in this process, because I feel like everything else was pretty much the same, that's what stuck out for me. And that's where I think we would need the most help, because I think it would be very hard for the staff or us to try to facilitate these things. I really do. I don't see how we would be able to do that, not in a way that would be significant. And so that's why I would still lean toward BWP for that reason.
I'm comfortable pausing and getting an answer from GSBA.
But I'm also comfortable doing that too.
On what their answer to that question is.
I'm leaning towards pausing and getting an answer to that question before we say we want to go with GSBA, and then we find out. I want to make sure that the answers that we get back we're comfortable with.
Because the worst possible world is like, oh yeah, do that if that's what you want. Here's a firm, they're $30,000. That would be awful.
And I don't really see where we would be in a situation where we could be talked out of needing that,
That I agree.
You know what I mean? I don't really see where they would say something that would be like, oh yeah, maybe we don't include, I don't really, everything else and every other kind of big decision that we make like this, we always have some kind of focus group or committee or something, and I think that
they certainly know.
Appreciates that. So.
And Valerie, Ms. Wilson certainly knows Decatur well enough to know that not having robust community engagement would likely put us, or increase the risk of us having an unsuccessful outcome. So I think that is, I agree with Tasha about the level of importance that has.
All right, so then we're in agreement that we will table this for now. We will, I will go back to the SBA tell them that we're interested in them, but this is very important to us. What are your suggestions about, you know,
Okay,
how we move forward from there?
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
that sounds good, thank you.
Alrighty. And so we will move on to future dates. We have future dates listed on the agenda for the upcoming meetings, trainings, and retreats. Are there any questions about the future dates for the work of the board?
One for me?
All right. Then, if there's no other discussion or questions, thank you all for joining us this evening. The meeting is now adjourned at 7:55.